media. Hi everyone, welcome to the quarantine kitchen here at Bricolor. As you can see, I've got my fancy face mask on. This is Mark Hansen. He is one of the founders here of Bricolor, and he is my assistant today. I'm not sure how much assisting we can do, considering we can't really smell a lot of the spices or drink the wine that we have, but we'll make it work. So thanks for joining. Sarah is, who is another of the co-founders here at Bricolor, is doing our technical setup right now. So we're just getting set up. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you have a cocktail on hand. And enjoy it for us as we are masked right now. So if you were on our call yesterday, before I forget, thank you Shane, Chef Shane here, for letting us take over the kitchen today. So we have this beautiful little mise en place to go through the spices. If you joined us last week, we talked about how a good digestion can really help with sleep properties and a better sleep hygiene. And today, what we're going to be talking about is some of the regular spices you can find in your supermarket and some of their medicinal qualities and healing qualities. What's interesting is that in the work that I've done over the past 25, 30 years around spices and cooking, a lot of my American friends and clients don't really know how to work with spices too well. Usually it's salt and pepper. One of my patients once said that they thought that tomato ketchup was a spice. I guess in certain dishes it could be. But what I'm going to do today is kind of run you through some of the medicinal qualities of the spices that we use in Ayurvedic medicine, which you can also use in your daily life, and maybe give you some rituals that you can pick up to help with your metabolism, boost your immune system, and do some other things there as well. So before we get started, I wanted to just kind of run through my little list of what I think is very important as you're buying your spices. Now, if you've ever gone to India, you may have seen one of these. This is called a spice tin. And the most important thing about your spices is to keep them cool and dry and in a dark place. And the reason for that is that the spices actually start losing potency within 3 or 5 days of being harvested. When I first moved to California, my vision was to have this beautiful setup of a kitchen with all these bowl jars with all these wonderful spices and herbs. But I realized that they were so, they weren't very potent at all, and sometimes the flavors started to change a little bit. And a great example of that is, I'm not sure if you can see this on the screen, but I've got some dill wheat here. So Sarah's going to bring the camera a little closer. This is dill that I purchased 2 days ago. And this is dill from 6 months ago. So you can see the one in my right hand is a lot fresher than the one in my left. So when you're purchasing spices, you want to make sure that you're getting them from a really good source and that they look fresher rather than not so good. Okay? And dill, what's interesting, dill is a fairly robust spice, but it does tend to degrade pretty quickly. The other thing you'll notice about my little setup here is that I don't have any powdered spices. And the reason for that is that I like to use whole spices because it has more potency when you're cooking with them or using them in tea or any sort of tincture. My mother-in-law who lives in New Orleans, every time we go down there, especially for Thanksgiving, we'll pull out this big box of powdered cinnamon, which I think my husband and I have estimated has been in the closet there for about 12 years. So it's basically cinnamon flavored dust. And we'll talk about cinnamon tonight. So if you are buying spices, I recommend keeping them in a nice tin like this. And the nice thing about this tin, I've got a selection of spices in it. So I can pull from these as I need to. And it keeps them cool and dry and out of the way of the sunlight. And if you're interested about doing this, on the blog after our class tonight, I will put a link that you can buy this from Amazon if you live in the Bay Area. And you can get to Berkeley once Berkeley opens back up again. You can buy these at an Indian shop. Okay, buy your spices from reputable sources. You want to buy your spices that are organic. If you live in an area that has a savory spice shop, You can actually go in and buy your spices in bulk. And what's great about Savory is that they will, if they grind the spices, they'll grind them in the United States. They won't grind them outside of the US and then bring them in. And you can buy your spices in ounces too. So there's a lot of opportunity to buy as much as you need or as little as you need. And like I said, buy whole spices as much as you can rather than ground spices. And you want to treat your spices with love. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Our first spice today is coriander, or coriander seed. In England, we call cilantro coriander. And this has kind of a light lemony flavor. It's one of my favorites. And coriander seed is used quite ubiquitously in Ayurvedic and Indian cooking. And what I like about the coriander is that if you have bad breath after eating a sandwich or some garlic, you can pop a few coriander seeds in your mouth, and it freshens your mouth so that you don't melt somebody's face off when you're next to them. Obviously, this helps. It's good. But what's interesting about coriander in Ayurvedic medicine, it has a lot of medical properties. Mostly we use it for water management, so as a diuretic or as a diaphoretic. So a diuretic helps you urinate, and a diaphoretic helps you sweat. It's a great anti-inflammatory, and it actually helps with digestion. It helps digestion without heating up the digestive system, which is really nice. We also have a lot of omega-6s, iron, some dietary fiber. It has potassium, calcium, and copper. And if you have, if you're trying to quit smoking, and you start to, if you have an oral fixation where you're chewing your pens or you're continually putting food in your mouth, you can chew some coriander seeds, and it actually takes that want to smoke away. This is very, very cool. So coriander seed is one of my favorites to use. In the blog, once we've finished this presentation, I'll give you a recipe for some tea that you can make. Very, very easy. You can have it after your meal, and it helps to settle the tummy as well. So there's your coriander. The next one is cumin. Now, cumin is a very interesting spice. Most people in the States think it smells like BO. Bad BO. But it's also ubiquitously used in Ayurvedic and Indian cooking.
Reminds me of India.
I hope so. So like coriander, cumin is a very cooling spice. And we use coriander as another anti-inflammatory. It has more of a pungent flavor to it, so it's not for everyone's palate. But I like to use this making a curry, for example, a little bit. You can go overboard. Some people have a palate where it actually isn't edible for them. There's a taste bud in their mouth, and it's not a very good flavor for them. But we use this as an emmenagogue, which is good for menstrual cramps when women are going through their cycle. And we also use this as a diuretic, so it's another way to manage the water. It's high in B12 complex. It's got copper, potassium, and magnesium. So this is really good as we used to call this in school as an all-purpose spice, especially if you're dealing with the wintertime blues. It helps to bring things back into balance that way. And I have a churna recipe. A churna recipe is a spice recipe that you can put on your food to flavor your food. It's quite nice and light. Then we have fennel seed. Now, fennel seed is interesting because Chef Shane just came in. This is your regular Indian fennel seed. And then this is Sicilian fennel seed, which he just gave me some. And you can, off the bat, notice the difference in size. And just before we started this afternoon, the Sicilian fennel seed is a lot sweeter and a lot less fibrous than the Indian fennel seed. So much like coriander, your fennel seed can be used for bad breath. If you have bad breath on a regular basis, or again, if you like to chew gum, fennel is my favorite thing to do. When I was working in advertising and then I was quitting smoking, I ate about a pound of this a day because it just kind of took away that want to put a cigarette in my mouth. This is also cooling. So if you're having issues with with inflammatory response, fennel is really good to cool the system down. We also use fennel as a digestive tea. So if you're having gurgly tummy, or if you're having a little bit of GERD or hyperacidity, you can make a fennel tea out of this. And it's very, very tasty. It's one of my favorites. So it's one of the spices we use in Ayurvedic medicine as a digestive stimulant, but without heating up the digestive system. So it's actually has a cooling property to it. It helps to suppress appetite as well. So if you are trying to recalibrate how you eat throughout the day, this could be a really good way of curbing your appetite, especially right now when we're in quarantine. I have a couple of patients who are going for the ice cream and the chocolate and anything else they can get their hands on. I see Cynthia's putting her hand up. Do you have a question, Cynthia?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I was just wondering, I couldn't hear the name of it correctly. How do you spell that?
Fennel?
How do you spell the what you were just talking about? That.
The fennel seed?
Yeah, I can't hear. I can't hear it. How do you spell it?
Fennel. It's F-E-N-N-E-L. Fennel.
Oh, fennel. Okay.
Fennel.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. It's the mask. It doesn't help.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. And now we have the fennel. Perfect.
Right.
So especially another thing we use fennel for is to break up mucus. So if you're the sort of person who wakes up with a little grogginess or a little bit of mucus, you can choose some fennel. It helps to break it up, which is really, really nice. This also has copper and iron, and has been shown to reduce LDL cholesterol. So it's really good for keeping your cholesterol really nice and even.
Deacon, do you keep all these by your bedside? So you just nibble on them at night in the morning?
I wake up and dump them in my mouth. Now, and you can go overboard. I mean, it's really a question of taste. One of the things that we do on our house on a regular basis is freshly ground ginger. And I'm going to make a tea in the process today, so you can do that at home. So fennel is one of my favorites. And we have a fennel tea recipe, which I'll supply to you guys as well. So I encourage you to actually play around with these spices when you get a chance. They're a lot of fun. You might find something new in your palate. Okay, ginger. This is my favorite spice. And they call it a hand of ginger because it looks like a hand. I mean, there we go. So, whoops. So ginger is kind of the go-to digestive spice that we use in Ayurvedic medicine. It's great for if you get any hyperacidity, if you get any GERD, if you get seasick, if you get travel sick, if you just have kind of an upset tummy, ginger is the way to go. Now, some people will actually eat the ginger itself. It can be a little bit hot, and ground up ginger is even hotter. So I always recommend going with the fresh because it's got a nice flavor profile to it, nice and spicy. So I brought my teapot with me today, and I'll show you some of the tools that we use at our house. This is a little grater. I think we've had this for about 6 years. We bought it at Sulatab, and it's falling apart, unfortunately, but there it is. And it's got this nice little dome here. And what you do, and I've washed the ginger, you just simply grate your ginger. And the nice thing about having the dome underneath is it catches it. So
it is a nice tool.
It's a great tool. And
Can you grate it with the skin on?
We grate it with the skin on because we're not actually eating the skin. We're not actually eating the ginger. So that's probably good.
Did you peel the ginger first?
I did not peel the ginger first. I washed it and scrubbed it. Okay, so in goes the ginger. All right, so this has a whole host of health properties. Antioxidant, aphrodisiac, and an aphrodisiac isn't, I think the term aphrodisiac is a little bit different in the United States versus anywhere else in the world. An aphrodisiac means it strengthens the reproductive tissues. It actually gives the body an opportunity to replenish the reproductive tissues. A digestive stimulant, an expectorant, which helps you with getting rid of any mucus. A carminative and a diaphoretic. So it actually heats up the body. Unlike the other spices we've been talking about, this is actually a warming spice. And it's really good if you're having a really bad day. You can have a cup of ginger tea and you feel a lot more better about the world. I mean, at least I do. That's why we drink a gallon of it in the morning, I think. It's one of the most beneficial spices in the world. We use it to prevent sluggish digestion. We use it to reduce toxins in the system called AMA. Typically, we take it with hot water. And like I said, it's the first thing that when my husband Jim and I get up in the morning, he'll go and make ginger with hot water for us, and it sort of sets your day up for success.
He spoils you.
Well, I spoil him. It's a two-way street.
Jim's smiling.
Exactly, I can see that. Yeah. For nutritional qualities, it's got B5 and B6 vitamins, potassium, manganese, and copper. And it's one of those spices that when you get on your hand, it smells, even through my mask I can smell it. It's very, very good. It smells really nice. And I have a ginger and hot water recipe for you. There is some controversy around peeling, whether to peel your ginger or not peel your ginger. My rule of thumb is if you are eating the ginger raw, peel the skin off. If you're making a tea, you can get a little vegetable brush and scrub it so it gets all the dirt off, and then you can just prepare your tea like this because you're not actually drinking the ginger tea leaves, as it were. Okay, in the same family, but slightly different, is my friend turmeric. So we have a hand of ginger, and we have fingers of turmeric. Now, a little story about turmeric. The first time I learned about turmeric, I was in college at a small university in Iowa called MIU. And I got the worst flu. I see some, yeah, hi Ari. I had the worst flu I ever had in my life. And my best friend Eric said, oh, you need the Fairfield Flu Fighter. Fairfield is the town that the college is in. And I had absolutely no idea what that was. Well, here it is. It was a tablespoon of powdered turmeric in hot water with a tablespoon of honey and a tablespoon of lemon. And it was the most revolting thing I have ever put in my mouth. And you have to continuously stir it. It basically has the consistency of a brick that has been powdered in water, and it's revolting. So I prefer the fresh turmeric. Fresh turmeric, first of all, tastes about 1,000,000 times better. It's got more of a zesty, a citrus flavor to it. And this is